Drive Time,
keeping you informed and inspired.
We love God. We ought to be able to talk about Him.
Getting you started on your day.
With the latest in breaking news and information.
from the Vatican to the White House and everything in between.
It's serious, it's fun, it's your Catholic Drive Time.
Now here's your host, Joe McClain.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host. So good to be on with you, Joe McClain here. It's Friday, August the 19th, 2022. Praise be to God. Good morning. You have survived the week. It is Friday. The weekend is upon you. You're just hours away from whatever it is, snake handling. I don't know what you do on your weekend, but nonetheless, milking the venomous spiders of Australia, whatever it is you do on your weekends. It's going to be amazing. Praise be to God. And we're going to have a great show today. Monsignor Charles Pope, a pastor out in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. He's going to be our guest this morning at 35 past the hour. We're going to be talking about how do we reject the novelties and abuses we find often in the liturgy, yet embrace the sacred and the beautiful liturgy that we have. We're going to be discussing that with Monsignor Charles Pope at 35 past the hour. At 15 past the hour, my good friend Mark Houck from the King's Men Apostolate's going to be on. There was an article out about a Canadian man who began to share his experience, brag about getting a vasectomy he got his right before Roe v. Wade, but he encouraged all men everywhere to get a vasectomy because, it takes two to tango, he said, and men have to be responsible or else they may have to help raise children. And we wouldn't want that.
Heaven forbid.
We're going to have that conversation with Mark Houck coming up in just a little bit. Hey, at the top of the next hour, if you can join us, we surely would love to have you. You might have heard, it's been like tearing up the Twitterverse. There is a commentary out by Bishop Barron on Elijah getting fired by God because he slaughtered 450 priests of the devil. And so he got fired for that. Well, we're going to have a conversation with Hector Molina from a biblical perspective on Bishop Barron's commentary on Elijah coming up at the top of the next hour. So please do join us. You can always watch us live on our website at grnonline.com/CDT. Hey, lots of stories in the news. Boston Children's Hospital, they are still doubling down, trying to deny that they are involved in some of this grotesque surgeries, even though they still do remove the breasts of teenage girls under 15. So there's that. Hey, New Jersey Education Association, they put out a new ad and basically calling parents extremists. That's always fun. Catholic Extension, a charity, this is good news, by the way, has great ties in Uvalde, Texas. They are providing scholarships to up to 30 students who are affected by the Robb Elementary School shooting. Praise be to God. That's good news. And Google contractor workers, they're demanding that the company extend out-of-state abortion coverage for them as well. So thanks, Google. I can't wait to get to heaven, and there will be no more Google. Praise be to God. Hey, we do have a change up on the team this morning. Adrian Fonseca is not on the ones and twos today, but in fact, Rudy Carlos has taken up the DJ stand there. Good morning to you, Rudy.
Hey, good morning. Good to be here, and I feel a lot more comfortable behind this producer setup than I was last time. So thanks be to God.
Should we change things up permanently when Adrian gets back?
I don't know. What do you say, dear listener?
Yeah, let us know. If you're watching on the live feed, comment below. What do you think? You want Adrian to read the news and you want Rudy to do the producing? Let us know. That'd be kind of a fun little poll there. Hey, but guess who's filling in for Rudy Carlos today is our good friend Mike Koniger from Virginia, the Brick Wall. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning. Good morning. We have Jam Master Rudy over there on the ones and twos.
Wicca. How's it going?
And I'm over here as the second MC, so we're going to have a rocking good time this morning.
Yeah, praise be to God. Now, Mike, you know what I mean when I say ones and twos. You're old enough to know what that means.
Absolutely. Turntable 1, turntable 2.
Exactly.
Hit it, Rudy. Give us a scratch.
Yes, exactly. It's fun because WKRP, they actually played vinyl records. So they depicted good old school radio with actual record playing. So it still has a radio history, a radio background there. But a lot of the kids today, they're like, what's the ones and twos? Like, come on, man.
They don't even know what a CD player is, Joe. Let's be honest.
Exactly. How are you feeling, Mike?
I'm feeling much better. You know, it's allergy season here in Virginia, so we enjoy that. And at night, it's getting down to 62, so you open up the house. But guess what happens when you do that? So,
yeah, all of those pollens come rushing into your nose.
Sir. So to be on the show today, I had to shut the house up and pay the air conditioning, man.
Oh, well, praise be to God. All right, we're going to jump into it. So much to get talking about today. Please do share us with a friend. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And now your headlines with Mike Koeniger.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to Catholic Drive Time. Today is Friday, August 19th, and here are your headlines. From LifeSite, Pope Francis says there are insufficient elements to launch an investigation into Cardinal Ouellet. Regarding the allegations of recent days reported in the press concerning Eminence Cardinal Mark Ouellet, the director of the Holy See Office, Matteo Bruni, says that having completed the preliminary investigation entrusted by the Pope to Father Jacques Servet, the conclusion of which was that there are no elements to initiate a trial against Cardinal Ouellet for sexual assault, read the Thursday statement. Since 2010, Ouellet has served as the prefect for the Dicastery for Bishops and the president for the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. And Breitbart tells us that all-girls school ditches policy that would have allowed boys to attend after pushback. Harpeth Hall, a private all-girls school in Nashville, Tennessee, has backed off a policy that would have allowed boys who identify as girls to attend the school after pushback from the community. The board's decision to back down is a victory for parents who, following the initial letter, advocated for their daughter's safety and for the integrity of the all-girls school. Sounds to me like they probably lost a few donors. And Newsweek tells us Putin promises Russian mothers $16,000 for having 10 children. Under the decree issued on Monday, a one-off payment of 1 million rubles, or $16,400, will be awarded to a mother who is a citizen of the Russian Federation and has given birth to and brought up 10 or more children who are citizens of Russia. The prize is awarded on the condition that the other 9 children are still alive. However, exceptions will be made for mothers whose children died or went missing in defense of the fatherland or in the performance of military service or civil duty. And from the BBC, the International Space Station, a girl 8 years old chats with astronaut on amateur radio. An 8-year-old girl from Kent used her father's amateur radio equipment to chat with an astronaut aboard the International Space Station. Isabella from Broadstairs spoke to American Kel Lindgren for about 45 seconds as the ISS passed overhead. Dr. Lindgren said the conversation may be my favorite so far. Isabella's parents said their daughter has long held an interest in space and ham radio, and they are encouraging her to apply for an amateur radio license. And those were your headlines this morning. God love you.
The saint of the day is Blessed Gregorio Martos Munoz. Born on April 3rd in 1908 in Argentina, he was born to a farm family who had migrated from Valor, Spain to Argentina in search for a better life. Gregorio was baptized at the age of 9 days. When the boy was 10 years old, the family returned to Spain. When he was old enough, Gregorio studied at the seminary in Granada and was such an able student that he graduated early and served as a teacher before ordination. Ordained a priest in the Archdiocese of Granada in 1933, as a parish priest, he was known as a gentle pastor who had lived a life of poverty and cared deeply about the sacramental life for the poor. Father Gregorio was arrested by anti-Catholic forces at the start of the Spanish Civil War and was imprisoned in Dalias Berja and El Ejido prisons. His captors tried to get him to renounce his faith and at one time tried to get him to desecrate a medal of the Virgin Mary. He swallowed it to get away from them, and eventually they gave up on changing him and murdered him instead. He is recognized as a martyr. Blessed Gregorio Martos Munoz, pray for us.
Praise be to God. in all things. The gospel today comes to us from Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 through 40. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a scholar of the law, tested him by asking, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to them, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets depend on these two commandments." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Haydock's commentary says, the Pharisees assembled themselves together that they might confound him by their numbers, whom they could not by their arguments. I found that very fascinating. So as the passage tells us, the Pharisees and the Sadducees are all the scholars. They're all teaming up. Now, these are groups that didn't really get along. They're kind of like siblings. I don't know if you've got a bunch of kids and, my kids get into these little sibling, quibbles and they start bickering with one another. It's kind of like that on a daily basis amongst these groups. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scholars, etc., the Herodians. But for whatever reason, it was the Lord Jesus Christ who brought them together. So upside? I don't know. But they didn't have good intentions. They still wanted to trip him up. They still wanted to find some way of getting him to make himself open to an error of some kind. And they thought if somebody could do it, then they could all take credit for it. But no, that didn't happen. Pseudo Chrysostom. Now, it's interesting because Pseudo Chrysostom is writings from the early church that were attributed to Chrysostom, but probably weren't written by him. We don't know who the actual author is, so it has the title Pseudo Chrysostom. This is what Pseudo Chrysostom says. "Whoso serves God in fear escapes punishment, but has not the reward of righteousness, because he did well unwillingly through fear. God does not desire to be served severely by men as a master, but to be loved as a father, for that he has given the spirit of adoption to men. But to love God with the whole heart is to have the heart inclined to the love of no one thing more than of God. To love God again with the whole soul is to have the mind stayed upon the truth and to be firm in the faith. For the love of the heart and the love of the soul are different. The first is in a sort of carnal, that we should love God even with our flesh, which we cannot do unless we first depart from the love of the things of this world. The love of the heart is felt in the heart, but the love of the soul is not felt, but is perceived because it consists in a judgment of the soul. For he who believes that all good is in God, and that without him is no good, he loves God with his whole soul. But to love God with the whole mind is to have all the faculties opened and unoccupied for him. He only loves God with his whole mind, whose intellect ministers to God, whose wisdom is employed about God, whose thoughts travail in the things of God, and whose memory holds the things which are good." Close quote, Pseudo Chrysostom. Do you get the point there? Do you see the little theme that goes throughout? To love God with one's mind, soul, and heart and everything is to be completely surrendered from this world, detached from this world, and completely given over to God. Whatever you do it for the glory of God, as St. Paul would say in 1 Corinthians, right? I do all, eat or drink, sleep, or whatever I do it for the glory of God. So this morning when you got up, did you get up for the glory of God? Do you tie your shoes for the glory of God? Do you get in your car and drive to work today or school or whatever you're doing today? Do you do it for the glory of God? This is to give one's whole mind, body, and soul over to the Lord. Haydock's commentary would go on to say, "It is evident that all dependeth not upon faith only, though faith be first, but much more upon charity, which is the love of God and our neighbor, and which is the sum of all the law and the prophets, because he that hath double charity, expressed here by these two principal commandments, fulfilleth all that is commanded in the law and the prophets." Close quote, Haydock's commentary. Let's give it all to God today. After this quick break, Mark Out from the Kingsmen will be our guest. Don't go anywhere.
Over people were treated as less than human because they were a different race, a different faith, or vulnerable. But over time, we must learn that we are all God's children, created in His image, that all human creation has an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a right to love and be loved. So let's cherish the sanctity of life, because we know how it feels when others treat us as less than human.
Some Protestants like to charge the Catholic Church with changing the Ten Commandments because it omits the prohibition of making graven images found in Exodus 20. But is this true? No, and here's the reason why. Like Augustine, the Catholic Church sees the prohibition of making graven images as merely an extension of the first commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me." In light of the context, it seems that Augustine was right, for immediately after God prohibits the making of graven images, he says in verse 5, "You shall not bow down to them or serve them." The prohibition is against idolatry, not the making of images in an absolute sense. So the Catholic Church didn't change the Ten Commandments, and it's not guilty of idolatry in having statues in its places of worship. I'm Carlo Broussard with a ready reason for Catholic Answers, Catholic.com.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Good morning. Coming up at 35 past the hour, we're going to have a conversation with Monsignor Charles Pope about the Mass. There's been a lot of tensions that have been rising within the church, not only in the hierarchy, but among the lay folk as well, between Novus Ordo Masses, traditional ad masses, and whatever. And we're going to have a conversation around all of that. How do we embrace the beauty of our liturgy without throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Monsignor Charles Pope will be on at 35 past the hour to discuss that. At the top of the next hour, Hector Molina is going to be our guest to talk about Bishop Barron's commentary on the prophet Elijah getting fired. That's news to me, and a lot of people have been responding on Twitter about that. So Hector Molina is going to give us a biblical perspective on 1 Kings 18 at the top of the next hour. So please do join us. And one more thing, let me get the housekeeping out of the way this morning. Today is the day where I will be sending you the CDT Insider email. So if you're not on our email list, can I encourage you to join, because I like to send goodies every single week, and I've been doing it on Friday the last several weeks to make sure that you have something over the weekend that will just brighten your day. So I think today I'm going to be sending you Shakespeare's Hamlet. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. Last week I sent Joan of Arc. I think this week I'm sending Shakespeare's Hamlet. So if you would like to get that in your inbox today, this afternoon, be sure to go to our website, grnonline.com/CDT. Look for the CDT Insider email link. You can click that. Just takes a moment or two to get on the list. We'll send you a talk by Father Bill Casey that is a powerful talk about the state of the church today and what you need to be doing and thinking and praying about. That'll go into your inbox right away, just as a thank you for signing up. So be sure to go to grnonline.com/CDT to get signed up today. The other thing you could do is just pull out your cell phone and text the letters GRN to the number 42828. If you text the letters GRN to the number 42828, that will get you on the CDT Insider email list as well. Super quick, super easy. And you'll let me harass you in your inbox at least once a week. Praise be to God. I intend to do good with it, I promise. But there are, as I say, lots of stories in the news that are of great concern to me, and I'm sure they are to you as well. My good friend Mark Houck from the Kingsmen is supposed to be on with us, and hopefully he'll join us at any second now. We'll get him on. But I saw this story out of BusinessInsider.com yesterday. The headline says, "Meet a Canadian man who's sharing his vasectomy experience to encourage men there and in the U.S. in a post-Roe v. Wade world." I find this interesting for a number of reasons, but let me read a little bit of the article to you. It says, the news of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade enraged Olivier, even though he doesn't live in the United States. I guess it's Oliver. That's how you would say it. It's I-E. I'm supposing that's Oliver. We're going to call him Oliver. The 28-year-old is from Canada, and he had gotten a vasectomy just months before the Supreme Court decision. And once the news dropped, he used social media to persuade other men to do the same. Vasectomy, quote, is a safe alternative to female birth control. Contraception is not only on women, but on us men, close quote, he wrote in a lengthy Facebook post in June. Quote, be smart, make the right choice, close quote. In an interview with The Insider, Oliver said he had noticed that only his female friends had ever spoken of or thought about birth control. Quote, women were talking about how shocked they were about what was happening in the U.S., close quote, he said, going on to say, but quote, men, they were all silent. No one was talking about it, close quote. Despite the fact that he does not live in the U.S., Oliver said the news is still applicable to him and to other Canadians, even though the decision was teased in May when Politico published a draft Supreme Court opinion signaling a reversal of Roe v. Wade. The news shocked Oliver because he said, quote, it's not impossible that people will try to do the same here, close quote. Going on to say, quote, here in Canada, we are kind of protected, he said. But what will happen if it were here, if the loss of rights were in Canada instead, close quote. At the same time, speaking out in favor of vasectomies is a way to show solidarity with women in the United States, he said. Quote, I realized that we had stepped back for the progression of women's rights, he said. Going on to say, quote, we are taking a step back. We're taking away rights, close quote. Now, I think you get the point. I don't think I need to read all the rest of it because you kind of get where I'm going with this, don't you? I mean, let me just share something with you. As you know, if you've listened to the show a number of times, you've heard me reference this. I took a woman to get an abortion back in 1994 in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's a very common thing at abortion mills to see the fathers of these children taking the mothers of these children to abortion mills and giving them only one single option. That's abortion. Because as I would have said back in 1994, my younger self, serving in the Marine Corps, stationed in one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, that I want no connection. I want no commitment. It's a good time. It's not a commitment. That is how I saw the world around me. I served at the altar of me, and I was the high priest. And so vasectomies are another way, as Oliver is pointing out here, another way to ensure that there is no commitment, there's no responsibility, because the alternative is, and it's funny because in his comments, he sort of hints at it. Guys, we have to be responsible. We have a role to play. Well, duh. Where's my duh button when I need it most? Duh. Of course you have. There you go. Duh. Of course you have a role to play. And what if we would have to take care of this child? Oh, even worse. What if we had to take care of the mother too? Because isn't that our role? Isn't that our lot as men? Made in God's image and likeness to be priests, to be prophets, to be kings, to be leaders, protectors, and providers. And yet I know that there are many, many Catholic men today who have had vasectomies. For whatever reason in their life, they have had these. Maybe they thought it was okay to do. Maybe at the time, they rationalized, as I did when I was rationalizing back in 94, taking that woman to abort and murder a child, which I am responsible for. For whatever reason, there are many men in this scenario today. And I wonder if they've ever stopped to ponder the action that they have taken. And I know, Mike Kuniger, I know this hits home close to you.
It certainly does, Joe. And you just confessed a grave sin. I'll confess my grave sin. I did get the snip, as they call it. I had fallen away from the church at a pretty young age, spent decades away. And when it was presented to me as a way of dealing with an issue, they didn't talk about alternatives. I got this is the way you can ensure that your wife won't die if she gets pregnant. And that was literally how it was laid out to me.
Really?
And, yes. And so, and I was in that same military culture you were in when you made your poor decision. And I'm sorry, it was a poor decision. I'm sure you know that.
Yes, I do.
and so I made a similar poor decision. And in the moment you don't think about it. Joe, when it really hits me is on Sunday when I go to church and I see those families with 7, 8, 9 kids. I feel an extreme sense of loss, just utter loss. What did I give up? And why didn't I do what I do now as an older man, where I research everything? I make sure I know all the ins and outs of everything. And had I done that, I would have probably never made. In fact, I know I would have never made that decision. I just wouldn't have.
I don't want to condemn all men who have made this decision. What I want to do is make an appeal, right? Now, if I'm not mistaken, it is reversible, but I don't know that for a fact.
$25,000, Joe.
Oh, well, I thought this was going to be hard. What are you talking about? Now, oftentimes I know men who have had the vasectomy who have regretted it, have had consultations with a spiritual director, and oftentimes they'll say, they're not forced to have them reversed at this point. And I guess $25,000 is a pretty significant barrier to entry there, to be sure.
It is. And I spoke with my confessor at the time when I returned to Mother Church. I spoke with my confessor, and that was not something that was required of me. But he did point out you had other decisions you could have made. And he was absolutely right. He was absolutely right.
I think there might be some men who might be listening now, or somebody who knows some guys that are on this on the verge here, and I think that's something they should consider very carefully. And one thing I've heard from a lot of men who've had made this decision, they'll say, "But okay, having children is expensive, and we can't afford it right now." But I push back and I say, okay, let's see your checkbook. Let's review your finances. What are you prioritizing in your life, and what aren't you prioritizing in your life? We live in an age where we have prioritized so many things that we are required to have 2-income homes. Our wives have to work because otherwise we can't pay the bills. But when I brought my wife home from her job so that we can homeschool our kids and care for our growing family, I had to work 3 jobs just to cover her salary because she made more money than me. It was very hard, very difficult. But I argue, and I would like to get your take on this, Mike, I think we don't, if we're being honest, we probably aren't prioritizing our finances in the way we ought to be.
Joe, guilty as charged. I mean, I've always heard if you want to know what a person stands for, look at their checkbook, and there's no doubt that's the case. The other thing is 1 kid is expensive. 2 kids aren't as expensive as 1, meaning that the old saying, cheaper by the dozen. They really are. And so, and I come from a relatively now it's a large family. Back in the day, it was just average. I think there are 6 of us, so I think that was about average back then. But my dad will always say, it was tough with 3. It was much easier with 6 because the costs just are not exponential. Yeah. So I'm with you. And I think we are being short-sighted when we remove something that is elemental to our being as men. And I know we're almost at the end of the segment, but this is a big part about what we are as men. Yeah. And I hate to say it, we're becoming the eunuchs. In many ways.
So here, as we're getting ready to wrap up here, but what would you say to a guy who is considering getting a vasectomy because he doesn't want the responsibility? He wants to avoid this responsibility. He wants a good time, not a long time. What would you say to him?
What you think is easy today will impact the rest of your life. Just the converse being our mothers who abort their children. They pay for that price for the rest of their lives. And don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's amazing the mentality, the rationalization that we give, and I do see the link between my rationalization and abortion, and I also participated in contraception to be sure, but in vasectomy, it's like women deserve total commitment. They deserve to be loved. Their children deserve to be loved, cared for, provided for, protected. That is inherent to our person as made in the image and likeness of God. It's stamped into our very DNA, and yet we avoid it like the plague because we really just want the world to serve us and our pleasures, our disordered passions. So let us pray for men who have made this decision, this rationalization. Let's pray for their total conversion. Let's pray for those men who are considering it to not consider it. It's the worst thing you could do. It is not going to further you in the cause of your own salvation, let alone for your need to be a man made in God's image, to be a leader, a protector, a provider, a priest, prophet, and king. Speaking of which, I and Mark Hauk, who wasn't able to join us, so we'll get him on another time, I'm going to be at the Into the Wild retreat, which is a retreat based on leader, protector, and provider, teaching that to men. It's a great retreat. You can go to thekingsmen.org for more details. It's in September. I'm going to be there. Tell a man. We'll be right back.
Instead of fighting the crowds, isn't it so much easier to hop online and do your shopping in the comfort of your own home? Did you know that you can help the Guadalupe Radio Network when you shop online? All you need to do is shop on Amazon Smile and 0.5% of your purchase goes to the GRN. Just go to amazonsmile.com and select La Promesa Foundation as your nonprofit of choice. La Promesa is the parent company of Guadalupe Radio. It's that simple to give a little extra help to the Guadalupe Radio Network.
This is Dale Ahlquist with a Chesterton Minute. Have you ever heard someone say, "What's wrong for you may be right for someone else"? And besides, what's right and wrong changes like everything else. You can't fight these things. You have to just go with the flow. G.K. Chesterton says, right is right, even if nobody does it. And wrong is wrong, even if everybody is wrong about it. Right and wrong are not based on fashion and personal preferences, and not on the calendar. They're based on the laws of God, on eternal truth that does not change. And as for going with the flow, G.K. Chesterton says, a dead thing goes with the stream. Only a living thing can go against it. Want more than a minute? Visit us at chesterton.org.
Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. And now more headlines. Millions in PPP loans to companies linked to Pelosi's husband, a Kardashian, and other celebs forgiven. Some companies owned by wealthy celebrities that received thousands by way of the Paycheck Protection Program intended to help small businesses survive the pandemic will not have to repay the money borrowed. Good American Gene Company of celebrity influencer Khloe Kardashian, whose net worth is estimated at about $50 million, received a roughly $1.25 million PPP loan. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, has an 8.1% share in the restaurant business EDI Associates, according to the Daily Mail. Financial disclosures show that the California couple has a net worth of $43 to $202 million. EDI Associates took out two loans worth over $1.7 million in total, which were both forgiven, including interest. And Paul Pelosi's share of that would have been about $138,000. Malicious intent suspected in wolf escape, Greater Vancouver Zoo says. The Greater Vancouver Zoo said Thursday afternoon that a number of its wolves were on the loose after the animals were believed to have been released from their enclosure as a result of malicious intent. However, it said there was no danger to the public, and it was working with the BC Conservation Officer Service to contain the animals. And your Labor Day flight will cost 23% more than last year. The travel booking company found that domestic airfare over the holiday weekend will cost an average of $278 per round trip, marking a 20% increase over rates seen in 2019 and 23% increase over those in 2021. Roughly 12.6 million passengers are expected to fly, with those leaving on Thursday, September 1st or Friday, September 2nd, witnessing the highest prices. And those were your headlines this morning. God love you.
Praise be to God in all things. Thank you, Mike, for keeping us up to date. Praise be to God. Don't forget to join our email list today, because I'm going to be sending it out. Going to be sending out Shakespeare's Hamlet. Again, go to grnonline.com/CDT to get on the CDT Insider email list. You know, I'll never forget, I think it was 2008. It was at the Cathedral of Corpus Christi in Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas, the cathedral down there. And I was going to a daily mass, and the priest who was presiding over the mass was a SOLT priest, Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity. And I was profoundly impacted by one specific part of the Mass. The whole Mass was very reverent. It was very sacred. It was very beautiful. And of course, being said in a cathedral, it gives a little bit more epic, you know what I'm saying, a little more gravitas. But it was watching this priest cleanse and purify the vessels after communion that blew my mind. By that time, I had been a Catholic almost a decade. I was received into the Catholic Church at the Easter Vigil of 1999, having been baptized in the Church of Christ sometime when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was only confirmed and received First Holy Communion at the Easter Vigil, but with Bishop McCormick at the Cathedral in New Hampshire. And in that decade, I can't recall a single occasion where I saw the level of intentionality, the level of effort to so precisely clean and purify these vessels. I mean, it caught my attention and I was laser focused. I had not seen anything like it in the decade that I had become Catholic. It was just mind-blowing to watch him so precisely, so carefully analyze, watching, looking so intently at every single square inch of all of these vessels, the chalice and the patent, and just making sure that there wasn't a single piece of the consecrated host remaining, a particle remaining anywhere, or the precious blood, and just being so careful and to clean these things. And I was just blown away. And it caught my attention. And I have to say that this pretty much illustrates my journey when it comes to the liturgy and pious practices of the faith. It was so foreign to me to see this level of intention. My experience has always been sort of the opposite of that. It's always been, they kind of go through the motions, they do it as quickly as they can because they don't want people waiting too long or getting antsy in the pews and whatever. And yet this really spoke to me about something much more profound, much more sacred, much more holy, much more reverent. So I bring this up to point out that we live in a day and an age where there are a lot of tensions rising within the church between traditional communities and non-traditional communities. More characterized as, say, as Novus Ordo or trads. And I lament this. I feel like this is not good for the church. It's happening within the hierarchy of the church, of course, and it's happening at the lay folk level too. And I saw a tweet, I think it was either earlier this week or it was late last week. This tweet came out by Bishop Thomas Tobin. Bishop Thomas said, "I am convinced that if the church is to prosper in the present age, it cannot hesitate to embrace and support traditional Catholics, traditional liturgies, and traditional moral values. Do not conform yourself to this age," St. Paul warned followers of Christ in Romans 12:2. I love this commentary from Bishop Thomas Tobin. I think it speaks very clearly to the issue that we're having today and to the need to have a candid conversation. So to join us to conversate about that is Monsignor Charles Pope from the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. Good morning to you, Monsignor. Monsignor, are you there? Monsignor, good morning to you. Monsignor, can you hear me? All right, I'm going to put him on hold. Rudy, if you could try to fix that up. Monsignor Charles Pope is a pastor at the Holy Comforter there in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C., and we're hoping to have a candid conversation with him. Good morning, Monsignor. Can you hear me now?
No, I'm trying to get through. Yes. All right.
Monsignor, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Praise be to God. Good morning to you, Monsignor. You're on air with us now. We're grateful for your time today. I was just setting up for the audience sort of my own journey about the first time I ever saw a priest. It was 2008. Be so intentional at the Holy Mass, and it was specific to purifying the vessels post-communion. He was so intentional, so determined to do such a thorough job that it caught my attention. I had never seen anything like it in the 10 years I had become Catholic. And then I also read Bishop Tobin's comment on Twitter about how he's convinced that we must embrace the traditional Catholics in our church today instead of dividing them. And I wanted to talk about the Mass, the Novus Ordo Mass in particular, and how we can avoid the abuses that we see so common in liturgies and embrace the sacred and the beautiful. What say you, Monsignor Charles Pope?
Yeah, well, I certainly agree with Bishop Tobin has said. It was so discouraging and disappointing to a lot of people when the Pope issued that, and there are, I think, for so many richness already in the liturgy, and for him to single out and say that this was becoming divisive. Even in the Roman Rite, we have the new Anglican usage. We have all kinds of, like the neo-catechumenal usage. There's different approaches. And of course, with the Eastern rites, we have many different varieties. So I think, while the Pope's stated thing was greater unity, I think it's a very odd thing that it seemed like he singled out the Latin Mass. And, it's extremely disappointing. And we're having to make a lot of adjustments here in my own diocese. So. But,
okay, so let's think about just the Novus Ordo for a sec here. I see so often that there's so many priests take liberties, and they just, I don't understand. Why can't they do the red and say the black? Like, why not just follow the rubrics as they are laid out?
Yeah, I think, to me, a huge part of the issue is this teaching the people, and it encourages priests to sort of, be more of a game show host or, some kind of a show host, but rather than, just to focus in on saying that. And I'll be honest, after years and years of saying Mass facing the people, it's even now still sort of an awkward thing. And, but I think even good priests sometimes get drawn off into some odd things because so much of the liturgy today is very focused on man and focused on the congregation, the aware, gathered community celebrating itself. And now Mrs. Murphy has a birthday, and we want to recognize that. And so all of these things, I think, pull priests off the mark. Even good ones struggle because it's there's a dynamic of what I would call man-centered rather than God-centered focus that's present.
Just the other day, we were having a conversation with a priest from Ireland, Father Kilcoyne, of the Archdiocese of Tuam, and he was talking about the active participation element. He feels like it's kind of gone too far in the Novus Ordo Mass, and he was lamenting that and desiring a greater sacredness in the Novus Ordo liturgies. And as I was trying to say before, I've seen them. They can be beautiful. They are in many ways, and yet we see there's always this element of just trying to make it more appeasing to the masses, I guess. I don't know. I want to get your further comment on that and to expound how the liturgy may be celebrated more beautifully and wonderfully in our churches and our parishes. But we're up against a little break here. Monsignor Charles Pope from the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. is our guest. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Catholic Drive Time has more to come.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your one-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. Are you lured by the half-century-old shift in Christianity that hails, I am supposed to be blessed with all my needs met, including excellent health, upward financial abundance, and sidestepping any adverse circumstance? Well, here's your 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. Number 1, sand or rock. Your prosperity church or your megachurch is offering you vanishing fantasies. Tens of millions are reaching for the lures that tickle a natural human quest for life with no heartaches. That is not Christianity as described by Jesus and the apostles. Secondly, there's 73 books, not just 73 individual verses of a dream life. God's merciful action in our life brings us into seasons that are not pleasant. We all struggle with expectations like, take up your cross and follow me. We just can't skirt it. This is a very real part of Christianity. St. Paul said in multiple places, what he suffered as loss, he counted as rubbish in order that he might gain Christ. And thirdly, my take on the lives of the saints. Bluntly said, more went wrong than went right, except at the end. And isn't that what counts? Find me online at Smarty Pants Catholic Evangelism.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders from EWTN's Call to Communion. I believe that the ministry of Catholic radio is one of the greatest tools we have in the church for evangelism today. I hear from people all over the world on a daily basis who have encountered Christ in the Catholic Church for the first time by listening to Catholic radio. Please support the ministry of Catholic radio today. Support Guadalupe Radio Network.
Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Monsignor Charles Pope is our guest. He is a pastor in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. We're talking about, this difficulty, this division that has been growing in recent years between traditional Catholics and Novus Ordo Catholics, and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I would say. Monsignor Charles, welcome back to the show. Before the break, I was sort of setting it up to say, I think as a traditional Catholic, we can sometimes be very critical of Novus Ordo masses. And I think in part it's because we see all of the abuses that happen. And maybe we're myopically only seeing abuses and not some of the more beautiful liturgies that are said frequently. I remember I had for years attended a very beautiful Novus Ordo Mass at a church in downtown Houston, Texas. But it was ad orientem. It was said in Latin. It was kneeling on a communion rail. And it felt very much like a TLM. So I'm a bit biased in that regard. But what would you say to that dichotomy or that tension that we are seeing among the lay folk?
Yeah, I think that we have to. I think all of us have to be careful to dogmatize our preferences. There are legitimately different forms, and even still, despite all the things the Pope has done, the traditional Latin Mass is still allowed in most places under certain circumstances. So, I think that we have to all be careful. Now, for example, I've sometimes been among charismatic Catholics who, talk about other Catholics like, they're the frozen chosen. They don't seem like they're more at a funeral than a wedding, So this isn't unique to the TLM. And when I was, the neo-catechumenal way, they think their way is, kind of the only real authentic way. They have some adaptation to the liturgy. So we could go on like that. But this is sort of a human problem. But it did become rather common among some of the Catholic commentariat, especially to opine rather loudly that the new Mass is junk. And I don't think any of them went so far as to say it's utterly invalid, but it's been a problem. However, I think that it was a manageable problem, and we didn't need this heavy-handed, suppression of the liturgy, that the Pope wants. And some gentle reminders: be a little more cautious in the way you speak, and so on. So I think that was going on. But I will also say, that, as you point out, so many Catholics are legitimately just brokenhearted over some of the foolishness that goes on in the liturgy. That's easily, to be seen on the internet and stuff, and everything from clown masses and, bozo noses and all kinds of crazy, unusual dances. And you just say, well, what is this, And it's never disciplined. It's never reined in. It seems that that's the biggest part. I mean, if a complaint is made, nothing is ever done. And it goes on and gets stranger and weirder. And yet, if you want to say a traditional Latin Mass, by God, you're in trouble now. That kind of a approach. So it's a very asymmetrical kind of, one side gets to goof off and do almost anything, and the traditional Latin Mass is the problem, and it's just sad and wrong.
Yeah, it feels like it's being vilified. And I've been a guy who has struggled with the term traditional Catholic. I have wrestled with that. I don't seek to be a traditional Catholic. I just want to be Catholic. I just want to embrace the Catholic faith, and I want to enjoy and I think of the Catholic faith as a deep ocean. I want to swim in all of its grandeur and glory, embracing its 2,000 years of patrimony and pious tradition. I want to be at the altar rail in the same way that Teresa of Avila was. I want to be there for the fullness and the richness of it, and I feel like there's vilification going on, and I would say it's on both both sides of that same coin. But let me also say this: we've covered that story. I know you're aware of it, Monsignor, about the priest in Milan who went on retreat with teenagers, stripped down to only his bathing shorts, and went into the water to say Holy Mass on an air mattress. That priest, to my knowledge, is still in good standing in his diocese, still saying the sacraments, and yet many TLM masses have been shut down and priests have been vilified. It seems unjust.
Yeah, and I think, of course, he to be fair, he did apologize. He was rebuked publicly by his bishop, and he did apologize. That's so rare. Even that much is so rare, you know. And so, again, we have this sort of, like you said, this dichotomy where one side is quickly, severely disciplined, and the other side is just, if there's any discipline at all, it's a hand slap. And but it starts to show you, this is the idea that people have about Mass today, pretty widely in the church, that you can sort of do the Mass anywhere, just sort of. The idea that you could do it on a rubber mattress out in the water.
Yeah,
I guess the waves weren't too strong that day. But anyway, all I can say is it's the fact that people even think, well, hey, that's okay, or that's something reasonable. This shows us what's happened to our sense of it. Almost nothing is sacred anymore. Nothing. And so there's a cultural issue too.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. So there's also examples of masses said in different, the Novus Ordo Mass being said in different cultures around the world, where you might see dancing more often. But even in Chicago, Father Pfleger is routinely having masses that feel a lot like Protestant services. And it's funny because when I first moved to the Houston, Texas area in 2006, and I turned on the television, there was all these mega churches, Protestant churches here, and they would do these singing and dancing. It was like a Broadway play every single weekend. And one had built a pirate ship and had it on their stage because Pirates of the Caribbean was out in the movie theaters at the time. And so they were doing a whole thing about related to the theme of pirates. And my heart broke for that pastor. Like, he's got to come up with a whole Broadway show every week. This has got to be intense pressure. But we see this type of mass being said not only in places like Africa, but also in Chicago. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, I think now, and I know a good number of priests that have come through and lived at the rectory here who are from Africa, and they have a deep sense of the sacred still. But there is, there are some things that might seem odd to an American, rather elaborate offertory processions. But for them, dance doesn't evoke just, this sort of... first of all, romantic love or whatever, or these things. It's a communal dance where everybody's sort of up and standing while the offertory is brought and they bring it up the aisle. It's quite elaborate. Whereas in this country, you got some woman up there in a leotard sort of doing lots of swaying. Sorry, what's this all mean? And some of the guys are sort of saying, maybe I shouldn't be looking at this.
Yeah,
it's a problematic thing. But it's to say, if there really is an enculturation that that makes sense and that is sacred to the people, as it is in Africa, then this is done. But they don't do liturgical dance like we do, at odd moments. It's generally just part of the offertory procession. And it doesn't go on other parts of the Mass. So, anyway, all these are ways of saying that Cardinal Rinze tackled that. He said, look, in most Western settings, dancing makes no sense. Now, in the African setting, there are some provisions, but even that, it's limited. Because, you see, the Mass isn't about us. It's about God. And our job one is to worship God. And this is the focus, and yet you would think, no, this is all about self-actualization and letting people come alive in music. It's all about us. And so we run into these cultural issues where we're a very narcissistic culture. I think we just have to accept that's kind of the truth. And it's people obsessively talk about themselves. That's where all this transgenderism, you got to use these pronouns, all this nonsense comes back to this sort of heavy narcissistic focus that I got to be me. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of the liturgy is to feed me and please me and entertain me. And I'm not going if I don't get all those things. And it's all about me. Mm-hmm. Or even in a lesser form, it's all about us, the aware, gathered community celebrating itself. And well, God's invited too, but he understands and he's everywhere. So there's a lot of cultural issues like that, and that is not what's going on with the African offertory procession, but they're celebrating and greatly bringing forward to God gifts. But anyway, enough said on that, I guess.
We have just about a minute and a half, 2 minutes now left with Monsignor Charles Pope. Let me ask you, Monsignor, what would you say to someone who is attending one of these I call them Saint Suburbia parishes, and they're noticing that there's a lot of novelty going on in the liturgy? What do you recommend that they do?
Well, I think first they have to obviously speak to the pastor, and a lot of times they're not going to get very far. And they just need to keep informing the bishops. But I do think that, the Latin Mass is going to continue to grow because people do have a hunger for the sacred. And the new Mass, which I love, I don't hate the new Mass, can be celebrated very reverently. But even there, sometimes bishops cut priests off at the knees by forbidding ad orientem, like Cardinal Suppic did, and so on. So we have a lot of work to do. But as I say, I think persistence will pay off. And I think the Latin Mass will continue to thrive, again, because of the reasons stated. People hunger for the sacred at the end of the day. A little Mass all focused on us is a very little Mass.
Amen. Do you think that parishioners should try to maybe attend a Mass at a different parish? I'm not referring to necessarily the TLM so much as, do you think if they're running into this and they're not getting any responses, do you think they should try to go to a different parish?
Oh, certainly, yeah. They really should vote with their feet and to some extent the pocketbook. But it's about the only power they seem to have. There's not a lot of listening going on sometimes today.
Wow.
And it's pretty frustrating at times,
Yeah, for sure. I'll never forget one of the parishes we attended in New Hampshire. They used glassware for the vessels at Mass. And I was not smart enough to know that was terrible. But we had parishioners there.
And forbidden. They're not supposed to do that. Yeah.
Yes, and they did it all the time. And there were parishioners there who were like, we refuse to leave. It's our parish, not his. He's got to go. We're staying.
Okay, well, that too, yeah.
So it's a very interesting situation we're in. And ultimately, I think we should lament the divisions within the church and come together closer as the body of Christ, but not vilify each other. But we do hunger for something greater, for something more profound and sacred. And we're grateful for your commentary today, Monsignor Charles Pope. God bless you. God love you. And have a great day, Monsignor.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Praise be to God. That is going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. We enjoyed having our conversations. We are glad that you were with us. If you can, join us in the next hour. Hector Molina is going to be our guest at the top of the next hour to talk about Bishop Robert Barron's commentary on Elijah getting fired. Did God fire Elijah for slaughtering Baal priests? We're going to talk about that next. grnonline.com/CDT. You can join us there.
Hello, this is Steve Gleason with your 1-minute tool for Catholic evangelism. Here's the question for your non-Catholic friend. According to 1 Corinthians 11, receiving communion in an unworthy manner can result in sickness and or death. If communion is simply wafer and juice as opposed to body and blood, doesn't the possibility of sickness and death just seem a little over the top? So here's the 3 best friendship tools for Catholic evangelism. First off, in the Bread of Life discourse in John 6, Jesus says, "He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me and I in him." Note, he said drink my blood. He did not say drink my wine or grape juice. Well, no commentary needed there. Secondly, you gonna walk? The disciples did not walk away from Jesus over a symbolic teaching of body and blood. They walked over how literally Jesus was teaching them. Also, they did not walk over the idea that feeding on Christ's body and blood is feeding on the Bible. No, no, no. And thirdly, your new response. My Catholic friend, when you are asked, hey, have you received Christ? Your answer is yes, every Sunday at Mass. That's how I know objectively that Christ is in me.
I had a personal experience that was life-changing for me. My husband of 21 years decided to leave our family, me and my girls, and in the midst of the absolute horrible heartache, I happened to be flipping flipping through the radio one day on the AM channel because I didn't feel like listening to music, and I happened to find Catholic radio. And ever since then, I have been tuned in religiously, and I feel like I have a really, really strong pull to the Catholic faith.
The Guadalupe Radio Network would like to thank those listeners who have supported Catholic radio financially over the years so that we could be there when Terry needed us. If you would like to support your Catholic radio station, please visit grnonline.com and you can click on the Donate Now button. Again, we sincerely thank you for helping us to be there for Terry and everyone else that needs God's love.
Are you on the CDT Insider email list? Hi, Joe McClain here. And every week I send you cool stuff straight to your inbox, goodies that you're not going to want to miss. Go to grnonline.com/CDT and get signed up today. Be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time, keeping you informed and inspired. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. God is so very good. It is the weekend. Praise be to God. Looking forward to the after show today where we get to conversate directly with you about whatever you want. And I see we've got some great commentary going on this morning on our CDT Telegram group. Clarissa's over there. Good morning to you, Clarissa. Praise be to God. I see Luz. Good morning to you, Luz. Jay Koch is over there. Praise be to Jesus. I see Nick the Mike is over there. Damon's over there. I see Kimberly Sunderman. Good morning to you. Tammy, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Good to see everybody. Forrest, good morning. Hopefully all is well. And you can always join our CDT Insider Telegram group via our email list, which today's that day when I send that out. So if you want to get in on the CDT Insider email list, you got to sign up over on our website, grnonline.com/CDT. You can be a part of our insider chat, which is fun. You know, we chat about all kinds of things. It's not always about what we talk about on the show. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. Other times, you know, we're just all showing our gats. Or what do the kids call them these days? Rosaries? I forget. Rudy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Joe. Spinning a couple plates here, but yeah,
how's it going on producing?
Dude, I don't mind it. It's pretty nice. I don't have to talk. I don't have to fumble through my words.
You're like the navigator on a big ship. That's what's kind of like what you are.
Yeah, I got the ascot on too.
Yeah, that would be a tall sailing ship if you have an ascot on. Praise be to God. Good morning to you, also Mike Koniger, our good friend from Virginia. Good morning to you, Mike.
Good morning again, Joe.
Praise be to God. Filling in this morning, Adrian Fonseca's on vacation. He's attending a wedding someplace, I think in New Mexico. Pretty sure.
He gets a lot of vacation. What's up with this?
That's what I like. When I was his age, I don't think he even had vacation. It's like I didn't even know what the word meant.
I had to beg to get a vacation.
Hey, Joe, by the way, I want to see those rosaries on Telegram. I want to see more of those pictures.
Yeah.
I forgot to post mine yesterday. I have one that I think is going to blow you guys all away.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, I have a high capacity rosary I need to take a picture of and put.
I want to see those 15-decade ones. I definitely want to see those.
I'm only carrying my everyday carry today. Which is the typical one. It's the steel beads with the 9mm Our Fathers. Praise be to God. Yes, good stuff. But if you do want to get in on the CDT chat, it's fun. It's a great little community, and it's growing. And we encourage you to be a part of it. Again, you got to be on our CDT Insider email list to be in on that action. Go to grnonline.com/CDT to be a part of that. And I'll send that email out later today. But joining us right now via phone is my good friend Hector Molina. Good morning to you, Hector. Hector, are you there? Well, today's been a day with the guests. I don't understand.
Try one more time.
Hector, are you there?
I am here.
Whew, praise be to God. I'm glad to hear your voice, my friend. How are you?
I am well, Joe. Good morning, and good morning to everyone there.
Well, we're glad to have you on. We just wrapped up a great conversation with Monsignor Charles Pope, and we'll be posting that in our podcast feed. But we wanted to cover another story that's been burning up Twitter. I mean, just like it's been going like wildfire. I saw this video being passed around. It's a commentary of Bishop Barron from Word on Fire, who was commenting on 1 Kings chapter 18, and I specifically point to verse 40 there, but Elijah confronting the priests of Baal and having the great show. I mean, this is action-adventure movie kind of stuff. Like, this is one of the best scenes ever. Can you set that up real quick? And then what I want to do is I actually want to play the clip so we can let the audience hear exactly what Bishop Barron said. But why don't you set up what's going down in 1 Kings 18, Hector Molina?
Well, in 1 Kings 18, we have the description of the contest or the battle between the prophet Elijah and the 450 prophets of Baal. And many of us, if not all of us, know of the drama of this particular story, and that ultimately Elijah calls down fire from heaven to consume the sacrifice, and subsequent to that, he then proceeds to kill these 450 prophets. And Bishop Barron, in his commentary, and this is taken from an online sermon that he delivered back in August of 2020, so it's a few years old, but actually, in doing a little research, we have basically another sermon clip, an audio clip of Bishop Barron, essentially affirming the same going back to 2004. Mm-hmm. And the gist of it is this: he's really focusing in on the whole question of this event that took place after the slaughter of these 450 prophets. You remember that Queen Jezebel basically put a hit out on the prophet because he essentially wiped out all of the prophets of Baal, presumably, and so he was on the run, became extremely distressed, was at the point of just giving it all up. And the Lord, an angel, refreshed him and essentially called him to Mount Horeb, which is the mountain of God. And there, in chapter 19, we have a description of a theophany. God promised Elijah that he would manifest himself to him. So we have this, basically, you have an earthquake, you have a fire, you have all of these grand manifestations. Well, God was not in the earthquake nor the fire, but he was in the still small voice. And Bishop Barron essentially, in homily in the sermon, was interpreting this still small voice to be essentially the equivalent of God firing the prophet Elijah, which was a pretty controversial statement and a position to take, to say the least. And it ruffled numerous feathers and raised eyebrows, including my own. So that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, let me play the clip so that we can hear exactly what Bishop Barron said.
Power is doing the best thing that a prophet's ever done in Israel. But in the immediate wake of that, the tiny whispering voice says, it's time for your successor. Elijah, you're fired. Why is he being fired? Could it have something to do with that extraordinary violence he showed after the beautiful prophetic manifestation on Mount Carmel?
You know, okay, so that's the clip. It's a shortened piece. I think the entire video is like 13 minutes or something, and that's like 30 seconds of it. I boil it down to, if you listen to the whole clip, he really points out that after Elijah had his mano a mano, one man against 450. I mean, like, you have to watch some Hong Kong Kung Fu, get down type of movies to get this kind of action. One man, 450 opponents, and he wipes the floor with all of them. And it's just such an epic passage in 1 Kings 18. You should go read it. But at the end of it, he has them all slaughtered by sword down by the river. And so when Bishop Barron says that in his commentary, in the longer version, 13-some minutes, he actually says he slits their throats. And I found that very interesting because I did some research this morning, and that's verse 40 of 1 Kings 18. It says, Elias said to them, this is the Douay Rheims, by the way, and Elias said to them, take the prophets of Baal and let not one of them escape. And when they had taken them, Elias brought them down to the torrent Sison. Sison and killed them there. Now, I tried to find some reference to the slitting of the throat, and maybe it actually did happen that way. I don't know. But I couldn't find in any translation nor commentary that it said that. How do you interpret that, Hector Molina?
Well, you know what? Even that whole question in terms of the manner in which the prophet slew these false prophets of Baal, that really is not that important. The important thing is that the prophet no doubt put these 450 prophets to death. Putting aside the exact manner in which he did it, what Bishop Barron is doing is he's taking exception. He's really, this is not exegesis. I'd say that he's really stretching things, and you could see a bit of eisegesis here in that he's reading into the text his own slant, his own bent, basically injecting kind of a modern sensibility to an ancient event, something that took place thousands of years ago. And he's taking exception to this, and he's really, it's putting it mildly, it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that the still small voice was the equivalent of God saying, you're fired. It's time for your successor, that he somehow was displeased with the actions of the prophet. I mean, just ask the question, how do you think, going back to what you said before, how do you think the prophet was able to slay these 450 prophets of Baal if the Lord had not delivered them into his hand? There's nowhere in the text where God expresses his displeasure or his outrage or any kind of a sense of dissatisfaction with the prophet. So he's reading into this text something that just isn't there, and that's what we call eisegesis and not exegesis. In fact, if you read the entire account, at the end of it, God goes so far as to indicate to the prophet Elijah that he is to appoint 2 kings and he is to anoint his successor, the prophet Elisha. And what's more, he doubles down. This is God who is saying that no one will escape the swords of these 2 kings and the prophet Elisha. So what does that mean? If God is affirming the fact that no other prophets of Baal shall escape the sword of these 2 kings whom God is appointing and Elijah's successor, it just doesn't make any sense that God would be displeased and somehow outraged by the violence of the prophet Elijah who slew these 450. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't compute.
It doesn't hold water.
Right.
No.
Haydock's commentary said, killed them by God's inspiration as impostors who had deluded the people and were worthy of death. That's Haydock's commentary. The Catholic Commentary on Scripture by Bernard Orchard says, Elias used the enthusiasm of the people to eliminate the prophets who were outlaws in the realm of Yahweh. The Council of Trent actually references this exact verse, 1 Kings 18:40. In question number 5, they are not guilty of murder who slay the enemy in just war. It says, in like manner, neither do they sin who actuated not by motives of cupidity or cruelty, but by the sole desire of promoting the public good. Take away the life of the enemy in a just war. There are, moreover, on record instances of slaughter executed by the special command of God himself. The sons of Levi, who put to death so many thousands in one day, were guilty of no sin. After the slaughter, they were thus addressed by Moses, ye have consecrated your hands this day to the Lord, close quote, the Catechism of the Council of Trent. So it seems to me that there are many instances, the Great Flood, for instance, or this slaughtering of the golden calf worshippers by the Levites.
Yeah, 32.
Yeah, and here in 1 Kings 18, harem warfare became a necessary component to try to save the Israelites from, because the Israelites were worshiping the devil. And Elijah was trying to save them from this, was he not?
Oh, he was. What's more, it wasn't just that they were worshiping false deities or demons, but they were engaged in child sacrifice, human sacrifice. I mean, we're talking about wicked and evil and perverted peoples, enemies of God. And as you alluded to in your quote here, that's fantastic for the Council of Trent. We see instance after instance in the scriptures, in the Old Testament, of God using his instruments, using his people to execute judgment on the enemies of God. You look at Exodus 32, as you alluded to, and the Levites who were instructed by God. I mean, it says in verse 27, and he said to them, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword on his side, and go to and from the gate to the gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor." And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. You have the example in 1 Samuel 15 of Saul defeating and slaughtering the Amalekites. You have Joshua chapter 6. I mean, there are numerous examples of God using his instruments to execute justice.
All right. Well, praise be to God. Hector Molina, we're so grateful for your time today. You can check out Hector on his website, hectormolina.com. That's hectormolina.com. We're going to have you back soon. God bless you, Hector. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, brother.
All right. What's coming up next is the game show. Today's the day we give out prizes. If you want your last 3 chances to get your copy of the Coffee Cup of Divine Providence, you must call now, 877-757-9424. We'll be right back.
Many Protestants believe we are saved by faith alone, and they say Catholics believe they can work their way into heaven. How do you answer that?
First, I asked them to show me where in the Catechism, the official teaching of the Catholic Church, does it teach that we can work our way into heaven. They can't because it doesn't. The Catholic Church has never taught a doctrine of salvation by works, that we can work our way into heaven. Second, I asked them to show me where in the Bible does it teach that we are saved by faith alone. They can't because it doesn't. The only place in all of Scripture where the phrase faith alone appears is in James 2:24, where it says that we are not justified or saved by faith alone. So one of the main pillars of Protestantism, the doctrine of salvation by faith alone, not only doesn't appear in the Bible, but the Bible actually says the exact opposite, that we are not saved by faith alone. Third, I asked them that if works have nothing to do with our salvation, then how come every passage in the New Testament that talks about judgment says we will be judged by our works, not by faith alone? We see this in Romans 2, Matthew 15, 1 Peter 1, and many other verses. Fourth, I asked them if we are saved by faith alone, why does 1 Corinthians 13:13 say that love is greater than faith? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Catholics believe that we are saved by God's grace alone. We can do nothing apart from God's grace to receive the free gift of salvation. However, we have to respond to His grace. Protestants believe that too. However, many Protestants believe that the only response necessary is an act of faith, whereas Catholics believe a response of faith and works is necessary, whereas the Bible puts it in Galatians 5:6, "For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision is of any avail, but faith working through love." Faith working through love, just as the Church teaches.
A beacon of truth in a troubled world. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network, radio for your soul.
Welcome to another round of Fear and Trembling, the Catholic trivia game show that helps you work out your salvation by the seat of your pants. It's a 50-50 chance and prizes are involved. Avoid the weeping and gnashing of teeth. Call now to take your shot, 877-757-9424. And now, your host, Joe McClain.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to Catholic Drive Time and Fear and Trembling, the Catholic trivia game show that has secrets and agendas. But what we need now is a contestant on the line. Well, phone lines are wide open. If you want an opportunity to win this week's prize, which today's the day where we give out that prize, call right now. 877-757-9424. Adrian is not in, but Rudy's here, and he's going to take your call at 877-757-9424. That phone number is 877-757-9424. First caller gets to play the game with us, possibly winning the prizes today. 877-757-9424. That's 877-757-9424. Call right now for your chance to win our prizes. But there are some things that we do like to do here. We just don't want the word getting out. That's all. So got to keep it close to the chest. Number one, we like to teach the faith. So we look for teachable moments in the questions where you're going to learn something you probably didn't know before. Then that wasn't true yesterday, actually. Yesterday's were all easy. But today, I guarantee you're going to learn at least one thing. You might learn two today. It's that much fun. Praise be to God. So that's number one. Number two, we like to have a laugh. We like to have a good time. Our callers actually are amazing. They laugh with us, and we enjoy that most of all. But we do give out prizes, which means it's an incentive for everybody. It's a winner for all involved. But the kicker is, out of the 3 Catholic trivia questions that are sitting in front of me right now, we won't be asking the caller a single question. They don't even need to know to win our game. Praise be to God. They may not know a single one and still win. That's because I'll ask Rudy and I'll ask Mike. One of them will give us a correct answer. The other will give us an incorrect answer. The caller will then have 15 seconds on the clock to make a decision. Whomst do they trust more? I was going to say Rudy or Adrian, but no, it's Rudy or Mike. And then every correct answer goes into the coffee cup of divine providence to win this week's prize. Rudy, what could they win?
If you are watching on the live stream, you can see it in my hand right now. It is the one, the only, the resplendent coffee cup of divine providence. The winner this week is going to win a replica, official replica, by the way, of the coffee cup of divine providence, which we will draw in just a few moments.
Okay. Sounds reasonable. Sounds fair. Praise be to God. All right, so let's go to the phones. Good morning to you, Antonio.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Hey, praise be to God, Antonio. Are you calling in from the great city of Houston, Texas?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Praise be. Now, have you called in the past?
You remember. Hey.
Now, I'm trying to remember what parish you go to.
I go to St. Helen or Holy Rosary and Co-Cathedral. Both churches.
I was going to guess something completely different. So
He's a church hopper.
Glad I didn't. I think I was going with Francis Cabrini in my mind, but no. Okay, so St. Helens and Pearland. I've been there. It's been a long time since I have been there. And then, of course, Holy Rosary is a beautiful parish in the Midtown area. Yes. And then the Co-Cathedral downtown, epic structure there. Praise be to God.
Yes.
All right. Yes. Well, Antonio, then you are a veteran of this game, but today there's curveballs flying your way. So you're going to have to be somewhat careful here. Now, as your tour guide, and your friend, and your only confidant, the only person you can really and truly trust in the game show is me. And but don't fact check that. But nonetheless, you should know that Rudy is wearing an ascot and he's sitting in the same place as Adrian normally does. And then you got Mike Koniger. So, and there is no telling. I mean, he's bald. He's got a goatee. He's from Virginia. We just don't know what's going to happen. Okay, so bear all that in mind today, Antonio. But are you ready to play, sir?
Yes, sir, I am.
Praise be to God. We will start with Mike Koniger, as is our custom, our tradition, to start with the newsreader guy. Good morning to you, Mike, again.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Now, you are not wearing a tie, but it's hard. We don't have enough data to correlate whether or not that means something.
He's wearing a plaid shirt.
But he is wearing a plaid shirt, so there's that. Are you ready, Mike?
I am ready. We're going to do this CDT style.
Praise be to God. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Are you really sure?
Got my tricky gig on.
All right, let's do this. Let's start with an easy one then. Mike, could you tell me who is the patron saint of bakers?
Easy one, Joe. We all know this. It's Saint Duff. Saint Duff.
Saint, one more time. Saint who?
Duff.
Duff.
D-U-F.
Duff, you say? Saint
Yes, sir.
Duff is the answer.
Everybody knows that.
Okay. Wow. Praise be to God. Okay. Let's just see what Brother Rudy in his ascot seems to think. I'm just glad you don't have like a pipe in your mouth this morning. You set all the fire alarms off.
They said I couldn't smoke in here.
Yeah. But could you tell me, Brother Rudy, who is the patron saint of bakers, please?
The patron saint of bakers. One of our listeners, Master Baker, should know this, but I'm going to go with Saint Nicholas, believe it or not.
Really?
Maybe it's because he left some cookies or something around, or I don't know, something like that.
What kind of cookies are we talking about here?
Obviously, we're talking about chocolate chip.
Yeah,
not the crunchy ones, the gooey ones.
Yay and amen. Praise be to God. Okay, so Brother Antonio in Houston, Texas, you've got options. Rudy seems to think that the patron saint of bakers is Saint Nicholas, whereas Brother Mike seems to think it is Saint Duff. 15 seconds on the clock. Who is right? Who is wrong? Antonio, what say you?
I would like to say Mr. Rudy.
You would like to say? Well, what are you actually going to say is the question.
Rudy.
Survey says...
Sure?
Well played, sir. Well played. I like to say. I like that. Now we're losing a little confidence in you, Rudy. And that's standard fare for Adrian, but...
I guess it just comes with the sitting in the right seat.
You're getting the Adrian treatment today.
Well,
that's
I'll
good
take
stuff. All right, St. Nicholas is the correct answer, and I guess we don't know whether or not they were chocolate chips, but because he loves God intensely, I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were. But congratulations, Antonio. You're in. Now, that was the easy one. Okay, the next one, harder. It's definitely harder. Let's take it 1 second at a time here. We're going to go to Rudy first. Rudy, can you tell me?
Okay.
A picture or carving with sacred subjects or emblems on 3 sections is called what?
That is what's known as, canonically, a 3-piece.
Really?
Yeah.
A 3-piece.
A 3-piece, yeah.
Whoa.
Let me get
I have one of those at the house.
3-piece?
Okay. 3-piece. A 3-piece. Let's see what Brother Mike Koniger has to say. Mike, could you tell me a picture or a carving that has sacred subjects on it or emblems on 3 different sections is called what?
It is called a triptych. Only thing I know in 3 pieces is suit. So
a triptych? Did you say triptych? Okay,
Yes,
that
sir.
music's a tad loud there.
Let me just reduce that. There you go.
Brother Rudy. All right, so a triptych. Okay, well, Antonio, you got options. Is this a picture or carving with sacred subjects or emblems on 3 sides? Is it a triptych, as Mike Koniger says, or a 3-piece, as Brother Rudy is ordering up today? 15 seconds on the clock. Who's right? Who is wrong? Antonio, what say you?
I would like to say Mike.
No. Yes, actually. Actually, no. You were right. Never mind. You're right. Don't worry about it. Triptych. It was a triptych. That's the correct answer.
It was trick-tick.
Yeah. Don't ignore the host that's trying to trip you up. It's the triptych. It's the correct answer.
Everybody just got a taste.
No.
Joe is not on your team.
Nothing to see here.
Joe is the trickiest.
Move along. There's nothing to see here. It was a triptych is the correct answer for a picture or carving with sacred subjects on 3 sides. Okay, you're in for 2. Let's go for a third. Also, exceedingly hard. I'm going to say this is expert level. Maybe only the Pope knows the correct answer on this one. We'll have to find out. Some would say. Let's go to Mike Koniger for this one. Mike, could you tell me what term refers to a demand in the name of God, either as a prayer or a command to do something or refrain from doing something? That's a tricky question just to say.
It is. This is tricky level 10, but it's an impetration.
Well, I'm sorry. One more time. A what?
Impetration.
Impetration, you say?
Yes, sir.
I know what that means. Google.com. Okay, wait. Let's go with Rudy here. Rudy, could you tell me what term refers to a demand in the name of God, either as a prayer or a command to do something or to refrain from doing something? What do we call that?
Joe, I adjure you from eating anything other than meat for the next 2 months.
You and my wife.
But it's known as an adjuration.
An adjuration. Okay. Well, Antonio, Rudy says it's an adjuration. Mike says it's an impartation. Impetration is what Mike said. So is it adjuration, Rudy, or impetration, Mike? 15 seconds on the clock. Who's right? Who's wrong? Antonio, what say you?
I'm going to close my eyes while driving. I'm going to say Rudy.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Keep your eyes wide open, please, sir. Antonio, well done. You played well. You got 3 right. Those were 2 tricky questions. You did great. Yes, adjuration was the correct answer, but we're pulling a name out of the coffee cup of divine providence right now. It could be you, Antonio. I don't know. What is God's holy will? Let's find out.
All right, I have one in my hand now, and the winner, it's Antonio.
No!
Yes!
Antonio, I think you have a solemn obligation to stick your head out the window and scream to the rooftops, praise be to God. Just right now, just roll the window down, shove your head out, and just praise be to Jesus.
And close your eyes.
Yes, exactly. And don't close your eyes. Not on Houston highways anyway. It's scary stuff. God bless you, Antonio. We're going to put you on hold to make sure we get your info so we can send you your own replica of the Coffee Cup of Divine Providence, personally autographed by the team here, plus a goodie pack of prizes. So God bless you, Antonio. Have a great day. And thank you for playing our game today. All right. Adrian was off. Rudy, you survived it. Congratulations. And see, it's not easy, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it is easy. I'm going to say it's easy.
I'm going to say it's not easy. I'm going to say it's a tricky piece of business, but we survived it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Join us in the after show to conversate there. God bless you. God love you. And we'll see you there.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.
Welcome back to the after show of Catholic Drive Time, where we get a lot more casual and comfortable about the conversation, and you, my dear friend, get to drive that conversation with your commentary. So do leave us a comment. If you've never commented before, please, can I encourage you to leave a first-time comment? We like to lavish extra love on first-time commenters. Let us know where you're from. That'd be especially awesome. But good morning to you, Kim Sunderman, over on the YouTubes. Praise be to God. Tammy Marbury over there. I see 0BKR double dipping on YouTube. Rumble's been a pain lately. I'm not sure what's up with that, but good morning to you. Praise be to God. Jay Koch is over there. I see you there. Forrest Shannon, good morning to you. Thanks for being on with us today. Scrolling through great commentary. We've had a lot of good conversations in the chat box today. Matthew, good morning to you. Appreciate you being on. Normally on Rumble, but not on YouTube today. Becky Dominguez and Alberto, good morning to you. Thanks for being here today. Praise be to Jesus. I see Brooks Durham is on this morning. Good morning to you. Like to see you here. Very grateful that you are. Paul, our friend from Buffalo, good morning to you. Thanks for being on. Mike Koniger's chatting up over at YouTube as well. Mike, you are a man of multitasking capability. Very impressed, sir.
It's just the way you guys treat me here. I got to do it all.
You clearly are. Mike K, thanks for that. Sean Marie, good morning to you. We appreciate you being on with us today. He points out that Bishop Barron is a Catholic consultant on the series Chosen. Yeah, there's that. That's true. Jeff Burrier, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Glad to see you here. And our guest, Master Baker, is on as well. Good morning, Master Baker. Now, question, did you know, Master Baker, that the patron saint of bakers was St. Nicholas? I got to say you did. I mean, I hate to ask such an obvious question, but I bet you did. Let us know in the chat box if that was an easy one for you. Let's see here. Over on Facebook, I see Lori. Good morning to you, Lori Powell. Always good to see you. So disappointed. Tricky triptych. Yeah. That was a Freudian slip, some would say. I see our friend Alan Smith here. Good morning to you. Our friend from the Great White North, the tundra of the North. Well, how much snow do you guys still have up there? I'm just curious. He's from Canada. Douglas Ross, good morning to you. Don Paddock, Gloria, Deanne Lopez, and June, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Thanks for being on with us today. Patty was on. Marina Del Rey, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Glad to see you here. Michelle Vaughn and Lucia Morgan. She said, if God fired Elijah, why did Jesus see him and Moses at the Transfiguration? Yeah, and he also got taken up by a fiery chariot. Kind of feels like a promotion, I'm going to be honest with you. Like God could have said, like Moses, God could have said, you know, Moses, because of your disobedience, you don't even get to enter the Holy Land. You get to see the Holy Land from a mountaintop, and you get to see all of your peeps entering in, but you don't get to go. And
that's messed up.
And you get to die on the mountain. Take that. Like, he could have done that to Elijah, but he didn't. Instead, he's like, Elijah, good and faithful servant, enter into your Father's glory. There's that.
You sure he wasn't like, look, man, after public backlash, we're going to have to get rid of you, bro.
Yeah, we had enough of public backlash that we have decided to mitigate this risk. And you're fired. Sorry. We have to let you go. There's nothing we can do. HR department.
That's going to be us after the show today.
Elijah, listen. HR has spoken. It's nothing I can do, right? Nothing I can do. Nick the Mike is on Odyssey. Good morning to you. Praise be to God. Nick the Mike says, good job. Great job, Rudy and Mike.
Hey, thanks.
What am I?
Mike's great, isn't he?
Liver? Thanks, Nick the Mike.
I mean, it's kind of like being a dad. It's kind of the thankless job. You're doing it well, and
you've been talking to my kids
nobody acknowledges it. So,
Alaric, good morning to you, Alaric. Good morning to you, Amber Carey. Good morning. Thanks for hanging out with Mike K. Also on Odyssey. This guy's ubiquitously everywhere. What's up with that? I see here Nelia there. Good morning to you. Sci-Fi Mike, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Glad to see you all here. And Rumble, in spite of the issues we've been having on Rumble, for whatever reason, we start the Rumble feed and it's set to private. And
you know what it is?
What is it?
Somebody, I think it was Jay Coke. Thanks for sending that, by the way. He sent a screen grab of a regular browser and then a Brave browser, which is what we use here on this computer. Okay. So maybe it's a Brave browser thing.
So in other words, only a regular browser will see it, and a Brave won't?
A Brave will, a regular won't.
Why would that be?
I have no idea.
Is Rumble censoring content now?
I have no idea.
Are they in the censor game?
Could be.
I don't think so, Joe. The Brave browser is a really secure browser. It doesn't allow a lot of cookies. It doesn't allow a lot of that kind of stuff. I think that may be it.
Huh, interesting.
It's something on the back end.
I'm using a DuckDuckGo plugin on Google Chrome, and I also can't see the live video feed. I have to. It doesn't show. It doesn't show up on the. So I can see Rumble and I can go to the Catholic Drive Time channel on Rumble, but there's no live video feed listed there. I had to get the link sent to me by Rudy to be able to get access to it.
Nick the Mike says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Liver. Great job, sir." Chop liver.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Let's chop liver to you, sir.
Mr. Liver. Damon, good morning to you. Hanging out on Rumble. If you're on Rumble right now, congratulations. You're one of very few people there. Make sure to leave a comment. Jay Koch has commented over there as well. And then let's see. Anybody else on let's see, Twitter? I don't see any commentary on Twitter.
Did you see Amber? She just commented.
Yeah, I did. Amber, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Let's see here. I'm just checking other places.
Kind of good comments we got here.
What did Amber say?
Let's see.
Hey, while Rudy's looking those up, Joe, the interwebs want to know, what are you eating on your carnivore diet on Fridays?
Oh, yeah. Is that what they're asking about?
That's all over the interwebs.
That's kind of awkward, to be honest with you. Yeah, so we can only eat products of animals. Typically, most carnivore people will eat beef product, pork product, that kind of chicken. But on Fridays, I have salmon. And it's not even good salmon, to be honest with you. It's like the frozen salmon you get at a grocery store. It's not good.
Oh, Joe, you gotta. I don't know if they have it here, but if you could find Schooner Bay salmon, it's good, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, the best salmon I ever had.
Wild Alaska caught. Wild Alaska.
Yes, 100%. When the last time I was in Alaska a couple of years ago, I was giving a parish mission there, and one of the parishioners brought me a bunch of freshly caught, freshly smoked salmon.
Ooh, boy.
It was so good.
That sounds amazing.
It was just so good. The salmon that we buy at the local grocery store, it's frozen. It's probably it's farm raised, I'm sure. It's just not good. It doesn't taste good. I have to force myself to eat it. So I eat that, and I in eggs. So I have boiled eggs. I scramble the whole thing up in a container, and I just force myself to get through it.
For extra penance, you could eat boiled leather.
Yeah, that might actually.
Well,
that would be beef product then. So I can't. do
not on Fridays.
Not on Friday. The other option is I certainly could fast all day. That is an option, but I'm going to be honest with you. I struggle with this carnivore diet. I love meat. I'm a meat eater. I love hunting and I love eating meat, but this has been a struggle. The food has been rough. To force myself to eat this food and only this food You get one flavor and you get no escape from it. There's nothing to like
umami all the time.
That. Yeah, it's like and this was one of my greatest fears going into this is that at the end of this, I'm going to become a vegan or something. I'm going to not want to touch meat. I'm going to hate it. The good news is I still love steak. I had a steak this last week. I'm like, oh, that tastes so good. That's just so good.
You're going to be a soy boy?
Oh, don't tell. I don't even want to talk about it.
Hey, Master Baker says his dad or his grandfather is not doing very well. Keep him in your prayers if possible.
Yeah. Alberto says, Joe, you can have too much meat. Actually, not on a carnivore diet. That's one of the myths that is prevalent out there, but that's one of the myths that gets debunked in the carnivore diet because I'm only eating meat for 3 months. And so far, I usually update the carnivore update is on Mondays because I weigh myself on Sundays. But so far, not accounting for what I've done this week, I've lost 13 pounds in just about a month or so.
That's pretty good.
Just about a month. It's like right at a month right now. And I've lost 13 pounds. The real question is, because I'm not doing this for weight loss, I'm doing this because I have chronic inflammation problems. And so far, 0 inflammation flare-ups on this. So, but I don't intend to do this forever, although there are some carnivore, zealots that will do this forever. I, however, am looking forward to eating carbs again someday. But we'll see.
Joe, I've been paleo since the early to mid 2000s, and my peak weight was 225, which for some folks sounds like really light, but for me, it's really heavy. And right now, I jumped on the scale this morning. I'm 173.
Wow.
And it's pretty brainless for me. I don't eat any grain. I don't eat any pasta. I don't eat rice. I don't eat any of that.
Okay.
That's brutal.
Meat, vegetables, potatoes are not a vegetable.
Come on, man. You can't take away the potato forever.
Well, you could cheat with sweet potatoes, but it's meat. It's regular green vegetables, carrots, all those, and there are berries for the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys were hitting on the sweet tooth thing. God gave us a sweet tooth, so we would eat blueberries and blackberries and raspberries.
I like all that. Yeah. But he also gave us chocolate, and he intends for us to enjoy the goodness of chocolate.
70% or higher. Dark chocolate, 70% or higher is allowed on the paleo diet.
But where did the chocolate come from, Joe?
God.
No.
Yes, it did.
The Aztecs.
Along with beer and wine. Along with beer and wine.
Yes, exactly. It's funny.
It's bad.
If my wife could have her way, she'd be like, Joe, you will be on the carnivore forever. I'm like, tain't gonna happen.
Tain't gonna happen.
Tain't gonna happen. And come November, I have a chocolate bar sitting in that fridge over there. I'm eating the darn thing. You hear me? I'm eating it with a potato.
You're gonna
with all the fixings. I'm just gonna sit there and just.
You're gonna feel like absolute garbage.
Probably.
Amber wants to know.
And then all my inflammation will come right back.
Yeah, exactly. Amber wants to know. You said you were doing keto afterward. What does that mean? So no carb?
Yeah, so the idea is when you get into ketosis, your body begins to burn fat and it just your metabolism really changes and for the good. So there's certain foods that can keep you into ketosis. And essentially we're talking about carbs here. When you get rid of the carbs, great things happen in your body, which is why carnivore actually works. You've eliminated all the carbs. And when you go strict carnivore diet, you're definitely eliminating all the carbs plus dairy so that your body has a chance to detox from those things. And then, but I'm not going to be a zealot in carnivore. I may go relaxed carnivore. I'm kind of relaxed now because I still drink coffee and I still have some dairy, again, coming from an animal. So, but at the end of this, the plan is to kind of go more keto, which to me sounds a lot more like paleo to me. It's kind of been the same thing.
It is. The big difference there is peanuts. We don't eat peanuts on the diet I'm on, but I know that a lot of the keto folks eat peanuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love peanuts. I miss peanut butter. That was one of my favorite after mass meals because I'd fast till after mass, and then so what I would do is I'd take a peanut butter jar that had like half or less in it, because the kids ate the first half. And then I would put peanuts, and then I would put banana, and I put a little cocoa powder on it from just straight up cocoa powder, nothing in it, nothing else, just cocoa powder. and then a little bit of honey. Woo, mix that up. Man, this is good. And then right after Mass, pow, that and my coffee. Man, that was so good. I missed that so much.
Joe, we need to fix this.
Wait, so why no peanuts?
Peanuts are they trigger fat. I mean, they're very fat, high fat content. Now there's some peanuts that are better than others, but just straight up peanut, there's a lot of fat content.
Y'all ever heard about that thing? They say like one single peanut can power your brain for an entire day or something like that.
Dude, almonds. I love almonds. I could mow some almonds, man.
I think the big thing, though, is peanuts aren't nuts; they're peas. They're legumes, and legumes cause inflammation in your body. Yeah. And you know that whenever you eat legumes, your body reacts to it. So, it is an issue. I think that what works for me may not work for you, Joe, or may not work for you, Rudy. So I kind of played with diets until I found what worked for me.
Yeah. And that's the trick, right? Like my daughter, who's also doing carnivore with me, one of my daughters, clearly I'm able to get away with eating like having dairy, so cheese, and I put half and half on the weekends in my coffee. So I'm drinking it black during the week and half on the weekends. I can get away with that. I don't seem to be having any issues with that. She has issues to that. So dairy's a problem for her. So you really got to customize the diet to your situation and whatever works for your body.
I've tried keto. I've tried Whole30. Whole30 worked pretty well for me, but I don't know if any of these diets really work for me. The one thing that really shed a bunch of weight for me is back when I was doing a road bike.
You need shedding of weight?
Dude, what? I used to be
a skinny guy over here bragging.
Bro.
Whatever, dude.
I used to be like 190 pounds.
Oh, my heart breaks for you.
And I was like real chunky, and like people would make fun of me and stuff. And so eventually I got to the point where it was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. And I got on the bike, started doing my road bike thing.
Yeah.
Got the spandex on. Woo! Really aerodynamic. I was shaving my legs.
What?
Dude, I was like,
you were one of those guys.
I was going hard. It was awesome.
You were one of those guys.
And then afterwards, once I lost like about 25 to 30 pounds, I got into this weird mode where I was thinking, okay, well, I can't eat this food. And if I eat this food, I have to eat just a little bit. Otherwise, it's going to like destroy me. And it became like a weird mental thing for me. So after that, I kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And then I got married with Ashley, and I just like kind of lost it.
Next, as they say, is all history.
I'm like,
now you're wearing shorts and black socks and flip-flops. And
no, I'm just kidding. You should impress.
Yeah.
You should impress your significant other.
I am, and it's interesting because there's a misnomer to think that, if we exercise, work out, that this is the trick. Weight loss has almost nothing to do with exercise.
No, it doesn't.
You burn fat by what you eat. So you could lose. In fact, I was listening to, who's your favorite actor? Matthew McConaughey, right? Matthew McConaughey talked about how when he was playing the role in the Dallas Buyers Club, he had to lose a ton of weight so he looked like he had AIDS.
Yeah, he looked really sickly in that movie.
And he talked about how he did it. He said he made the determination to severely reduce his food intake. And that was all he did. He didn't go work out, nothing. He just lost a ton of weight just because he reduced the intake just by calories.
Now, Sci-Fi Mike over on Odyssey is saying, he's asking a pretty good question here. He says, can you replace peanut M&Ms with almond M&Ms?
I eat almonds by themselves in great abundance prior to this carnivore thing. Can you go almond M&Ms? I'm going to say yeah. Praise be to God. Let's do that. Let's do this. I'm going to pound a whole pound of almond M&Ms in the first after show after carnivore diet. How about that?
Joe's like, yeah, that's canon.
Yeah, totally. But I was going to say is I exercise. I've had a rough history of exercise over the last several years because usually I've injured myself when I get back to exercise routines. I've always messed up ligaments and
bro,
and
you got to go low impact.
Yeah, so right now I'm doing high intensity training. I've also gotten back onto the mountain bike, and I go for like pretty intense walks. So high speed, kind of keep the heart rate going, kind of walks, and I try to do it in the heat of the day. And and I want to do. Eventually, what I do is when the walk gets too easy, put on a trash bag, sweat it out.
Yeah.
Put on a coat. I wear a hat to keep the body heat in, so I sweat more. And then you put on boots, and you do all of that with boots, and then so you keep ramping up. And exercise is great for conditioning the body. High intensity training does help with burning fat, but I found this this video that talked about this. Doctor says, I was looking at sweetener replacements, so stevia and that kind of thing. He says if you just put something sweet on the tongue and spit it out after, you've already generated insulin, and so you've lost the next 4 hours. Your body will not burn fat over the next 4 hours because you tasted something sweet. So
what are you talking about, Joe? Like a Colombian drug dealer, like pinky the stevia, and you're like, it's good stuff.
Now I heard you say that earlier this week, Joe, and I've read a lot of these studies regarding these different sweeteners, and particularly stevia, and I'm not sure that there's 100% consensus on that.
No, he did say that too. He says there are different opinions, but
some would say
he was citing studies that experimented with having water that was sweetened with various sweeteners, and they just put it on the tongue, switched it around their mouth, and spit it out, and they generated insulin just from that experience.
Now, white sugar is demonic. We all know it. It's bad for you.
The devil.
That's racist.
It is definitely of the devil. But, again, I reiterate, but fruit, which is fructose, there are healthy aspects because the bang for the buck is there. You eat a blueberry, you're getting so many antioxidants. And
it's good stuff. Yeah, they're not all created equal, these sweeteners. And that's why I switched. We got rid of white sugar years ago in our house. And we were exclusively using honey and honey locally to sweeten anything that we had. And so I put a lot of it in my coffee. But the problem is, although it's a good sweetener, it's also a carbohydrate. So it generates the downsides there as well. But I think we're looking at monk fruit or stevia. I don't like the taste of stevia. So once I go keto, I probably will incorporate monk fruit. But I'm gonna hold off until then. So I can, if I'm going to torture myself for 3 months, I might as well get the best bang for my buck.
Y'all ever had monk fruit tacos?
No.
They're like, oh man, they're so gross. I guess vegans.
I eat a lot of tacos, but that does not appeal to me.
Yeah, vegans like mix it up with all kinds of different flavorings and stuff to try and make it taste like pork because it's got like a meaty consistency to it. But
really,
man, it's disgusting.
Sci-Fi Mike says I have a white sugar on IV drip right now. So there's that. Yeah. When I was a kid, my mother would buy the bag of white sugar at the grocery store. Man, I just open up a spoonful of that thing right in my mouth.
Put half of it, or all of it in the Kool-Aid.
Or remember when you could get white sugar cubes. Like I would just pop those like candy, man. This is the good old days of school and life as a kid. Let's see. What are you guys up to this week? And let us know. What did you think of Bishop Barron's commentary? We got about 9 minutes on the clock here. What did you guys think about Bishop Barron's commentary on Elijah being fired by God? Mike, did you have any input there?
And I actually subscribe to the Hollow app on iPhone. Bishop Barron's very involved in it. And after hearing all of this, I will stop my subscription to the Hallow app, HALLOW. When we start to ascribe these 21st century behaviors to God, who is timeless.
Yeah, right.
It's just, and it just doesn't jive with the story that Scripture gives us. That was the other thing. If a chariot came down and I was offered a ride, you're darn right I'd grab that chariot ride and go home.
Yeah. It kind of I see a parallel here. Remember the story we covered the other day about Father Vincent Capodanno, and his cause being stalled because they were like, it sends the wrong message to make a saint out of somebody involved in military and war. We don't want to send this message today, so let's not do it. It's like, hello, the guy was either virtuous or he wasn't. It shouldn't be a standard that, did he serve in the military? Well, then no, I'm sorry, no. Like, that's not a thing. Why are we doing that? So similarly, it's like this modernist idea of violence and war is really not thoroughly thought out. It's like, I don't like violence any more than anybody else does. It grieves me. There was, I think it was 100 shots fired in Philadelphia yesterday near a park full of kids, and somebody got hit in the shoulder who was a bystander. I mean, violence is horrible. I don't want violence. I don't like violence. I don't want anybody to get hurt. But at the same time, there are occasions where violence becomes a necessary tool to accomplish the greater good. We should not like it, but sometimes we got to do it. And it just all depends, which is why the Catechism of the Council of Trent brought that up, and and specifically cited that verse. So this, like you said, Mike, this sort of backwards applying in history this modern thing, this modern lens. It's like, of course you're going to wrench the passage out of context. It just doesn't make sense.
I like what Hector mentioned too. It's almost as if you're reading through it and God did not allow. It would be like God put him in that situation to overcome them, and then he just, what was he supposed to do after that? God put him in the situation where he could enact that act. Yeah. And also what you said, Joe, was interesting, that you couldn't find this explicit way of taking the lives of these heretical priests. Yeah. And I think they're just trying to. I think the good bishop, is trying to appeal to the emotions of the people who are
I felt
reading
so too.
This or watching this.
I think he emphasized the whole slitting of the throat just to try to paint a very vivid picture in the mind of the listener. Mm-hmm. So they would think, oh, that's so horrible to slaughter these people who worshipped these demons and then encourage the faithful to do so as well. I mean,
I'm not trying to be gross here, Joe, but you're a hunter. You know what I'm getting ready to say. In battle, what if indeed a lot, and again, I don't see it in Scripture either, but if throats were getting slit, it was a mercy to end suffering.
The only reason why I bring it up, because I think he used it. My theory is, I believe he used that particular language, which isn't found in Scripture, specifically to manipulate the emotions of the hearer. Not that it's not true. It still could be the way they were dispatched. Sure. I'm not even arguing that part. I just think he used it in a manipulative way. That's the point I'm trying to make.
But I agree with you, Mike. That was one of the things I thought initially was, how else, what other humane, quote unquote, way would there have been for him to kill them? We're not dealing with dispatching animals, which there are ways to do that humanely, but we're talking about people here, and I don't know, what is a quicker way to dispatch these people?
There at that time was nothing quicker, and that's just a fact. If you read first-person accounts of battlefields post-battle, they talk about the suffering that goes on for days afterwards of dying. Yeah, and we've quote cleaned up war, and I it's not cleaned up, but that's the way we think of it. Mm-hmm. But it's suffering still occurs. I mean, just go to the VA hospital and take a look around. You can see the effects of suffering of war. And one man kills hundreds. That's a miracle. It may not be a great miracle, but it isn't like the movies. One man doesn't kill hundreds without some kind of divine intervention.
Yeah, it's not like John Wick or something.
Once he's killed the first one, the other 449 are going to go, wait, hold on, what? I mean, I'm not standing around here waiting for this to go down. You're out of your mind. So something had to have occurred in order for all 450 to be slaughtered. Either the people were encouraged by Elijah to dispatch them, which is a possibility, I suppose, or God delivered them into his hand.
Perhaps Deus Vult.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me. But, it's funny, yesterday or the day before, I was talking to my son, and, I try to be very careful about my son's romantic notions of war, which is very common for young men. I had that as a kid. I watched Full Metal Jacket, and I thought, oh, what a romantic film. And then as an adult, I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. This is supposed to be anti-war.
Whoa,
what was I? College US.
Kind of gnarly.
Yeah. Kill them all, let God sort them out. I was all about that back in the day. So we were talking about Scottish battles that the MacLean clan had participated in.
Sorry, Joe, not to interrupt you, but as a kid watching that movie, which, by the way, you shouldn't let your kids watch that.
No.
When they're shooting the machine gun off of the helicopter, I was like, wow, that's awesome.
They're randomly killing innocent people.
Yeah, and now I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
That's horrible.
Those were just farmers. Whoa.
So my son mentioned this particular battle that MacLean's had been involved in. And the slaughter was great. And they sang songs about the slaughter after, which you can listen to today. There are, Irish songs that sing about this particular battle as well. And I'm like, son, I go, if you were there, you probably would have heard the screaming of men suffering in agony, and it would have been overwhelming. I said, I imagine that every man who fought in that battle probably had PTSD for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Joe, and it's reality. We romanticize the soldier, and most of the people who do the romanticizing weren't the soldier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we shouldn't want these things. We may have to do these things. We although I would argue there's not been a just war in a very long time. But nonetheless,
well, we've had this discussion before, Joe. I think I actually came on a segment and we discussed just war to a degree, and you're absolutely right. And it doesn't even matter if it's just the personal impact on anybody who fights in a battle and takes another's life. It doesn't matter if it's just or not. They will feel that the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Well, great conversations today. A little tricky. Unfortunately, Mark Howell couldn't join us. He had some difficulties, and then Monsignor had some trouble getting on, too. We finally got him on, praise be to God, but still a good conversation. And then, of course, Hector Molina was a really good conversation. Really enjoyed diving into that from a scriptural standpoint. So, you know what? Yeah, do your homework. You know, when it comes to Scripture, there's tons of great resources. We use verbum.com/CDT, or at least I do anyway. And because it's a wonderful tool that gets all my commentaries linked up so I can go to a verse and see all of their commentaries on that particular verse. GRN is, so you go to Verbum with the V, VERBUM, verbum.com/GRN. It's not inexpensive, but it is very powerful biblical study software. Highly encourage you to check it out if you're so inclined. But a lot of that commentary you can get for free online. Look for Haydock's commentary, for instance, or the Golden Thread by St. Thomas Aquinas. All of it is available for free online too. So, hey, God bless you. God love you. On Monday, we're going to be talking about that Boston hospital and their shenanigans and transing kids. That's on the agenda, and a whole lot more. So do share us with a friend. God bless you. God love you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for joining us on Your Catholic Drive Time, where it is our pleasure to keep you informed and inspired.
Join us Monday through Friday at the same time, right here on your favorite Catholic radio station.
Don't forget to connect with us. Just go to facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Again, that's facebook.com/Catholic Drive Time.
Be sure to share more than just us today. Share Jesus with everyone you meet.
Bye now, and God love you.